Four Absolutes of the Oxford Group. Absolute Love, Part 5. Yes, Part 5. My name is Steve Van Eiderstein, and welcome to the Narrowing Path, Walking the Spiritual Walk. I am excited again to be continuing on with this chapter, and I want to thank everyone for their taking the time to watch the content, and watch the shorts and the videos and everything like that. I really do appreciate it. I really appreciate the feedback and the comments, and it's really been a great experience going through these absolutes from the Oxford Group, especially this absolute love. Again, this seems to be resonating with a lot of people, so I'm glad to see it's finding a home, and it's finding some places to actually be received and get in front of the right people. So I really appreciate that. So for anybody who isn't, please like, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Follow. We're on YouTube and Spotify, as well as a Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all that kind of stuff too, TikTok. So greatly appreciate your support. And thank you again so much for those who already have. So let's go ahead and we'll get to the reading. We're reading more than a paragraph this time. I know we're making progress. It's fantastic. But so we're reading from the book, What is the Oxford Group? Right here. And it's by technically a layman with a pen. A person decided to stay anonymous, which I appreciate. Kind of takes some of the bias that could happen out of it, which is always a great thing. So let's go ahead and get into it. If you have your own copy of this book and one of the original printings, we're on page 112. And let's go ahead and get started. So this is Absolute Love from the book, What is the Oxford Group? Love is not only an emotion. Love is understanding, and when we give understanding, we give love. A loving heart, said Thomas Carlyle, is the beginning of all knowledge. Who welcomes this knowledge of a loving heart? How many of us want to be troubled to realize that in these days when poverty is a crime and charity is meted out with all the soullessness of the law, homeless honest men and women should rather remain homeless than accept help from soulless state machines they believe will cast an undying stigma on them. The workhouses where charity has lost the blessed sweetness of its name are in their very soullessness a punishment for poverty. That at night wrecks of humanity huddle together in public places of great cities, united in the common bond of homelessness, whilst only a few humanitarians with real pain in their hearts for these flotsam and jetsam on the stream of human life try to alleviate their lot in some measure, but without being able to reach the root of this canker in our civilization that should know no want. Do we really care that hunger marchers, who march with class hatred in their very souls against those they believe to be their oppressors, find at their journey's end nothing that will give them back even their self-respect? Or that prisons, because of the lack of constructive moral regeneration, cause the prisoners to nourish fresh projects for the very crimes punishment is intended to stamp out? Do we care that prison life is often destructive, turning those who, because they believe the world has turned its back on them, into habitual criminals, when they might re-enter freedom wiser and better citizens? Do we think it is our business that reformatories and schools of correction leave on the young who have taken the first wrongful step a social blot they feel they can never clean themselves of? Go and sin no more is of very little use to anyone if his future has been destroyed and he is branded an ex-convict to his dying day. And yet, knowing all these things, are we like some people who still wonder why one class wars against another class and wish to get back to that time when the lower classes were inarticulate because they were uneducated, and the upper class stolidly comfortable and content with their knowledge that pride of family, prosperity in business, outward respectability, and strict conformity to social demands were the backbone of the social system of the time? Being part of the system today, we must realize that in these times which change with the quickness and unexpectedness of a chameleon, that system has no deep roots. Education of the masses has loosened tongues, criticism, ideas, and dreams. Working class social revolutionaries are willing to die in order to put into practice reforms their forefathers could not have put into words not so very long ago. We must remember that no one can prophesy with certain knowledge or real foresight the nature of the change in the structure of social life that may come about even in our time, but it is certain that events will go at a far quicker pace as the next few years pass, and that the end may bring a holocaust, the like of which has never been seen or imagined. If half these problems, so near to all of us, could awaken even a spurt of constructive action, we should try to get down to the real solution by proving to the world that Christ, with his absolute love for mankind, can and will save for the sake of a few, the many who will not even know him. So there we go. That is the reading for today, and forgive me for the occasional sniffle, getting over a cold here. But that was an incredible reading for what's exactly going on today. That was an incredible reading for a lot of big picture ideas. That was an incredible reading for people who work in the social services field that understand what they're talking about here, or even if you don't work in there, but you've experienced some of it maybe, or you observed it from a loving heart to say, hey, this isn't the way things are supposed to be going. And this was written in 1930s. Remember that. This was written 100 years ago, and they're talking about the same things we're talking about today. And I keep saying that because it is so absolutely relevant. We obviously did not learn our lesson then, and we're trying to find new resolutions today. I can believe that. But the problems are still the same. The social issues are still the same. And it's kind of amazing when you actually realize that. And it's kind of amazing when you actually stop to acknowledge it and wonder what progress we've made. So do I think there's been progress made since 1930? Yes. But I do wish that there was more. So let's go ahead and let's get started with this. It opens with a great line. We talk about it often on this podcast. I talk about it often on this podcast. Love is not only an emotion. Love is understanding. And when we give understanding, we give love. I talked about this a little bit last week, not necessarily with the term understanding, but with the quality and the description of other things, right? Like acceptance and kindness and joy, happiness, forgiveness. Those are love in different forms, right? So we start this section of the chapter out with him equating love to understanding, right? And understanding is really quite important, right? Because understanding leads to perspective. Understanding leads to compassion. Understanding leads to empathy, right? Instead of just pity, right? Understanding is a critical trait of a loving heart. Understanding is an aspect of love that, when you practice it, can give you the opportunity to truly be of service to somebody. And we'll expand a little bit on that. And then it feeds us into this line, a loving heart, said Thomas Carlyle, is the beginning of all knowledge, of all real truth, which I think is a beautiful quote. I'm not sure what book that came from, to be honest with you. I'm not sure. Honestly, I'm not sure where he was quoting that from. I wish now that I had looked it up before I did this, but it's such a beautiful quote. It's such truth. I believe that to be the absolute truth. This is the only way we can have a true understanding, right? Because a true understanding of where a person's coming from, what a person's going through, to have the healthiest and utmost sense of perspective, compassion, and empathy for somebody else, right? This is not an understanding to take advantage of somebody, not an understanding to manipulate somebody, not an understanding to be selfish or to use for selfish and self-centered ends, right? This isn't just to improve your life. When you have love, love in your heart, when you're practicing absolute love and you have a loving heart, you have this ability to, as they say, put yourself in another person's shoes. Understand where they might be coming from, to see what they might be going through, right? To be able to relate to somebody instead of judge, right? Instead of condemn, instead of degrade their character, right? Or attack their character. A loving heart cannot produce any of that. Only a selfish and self-centered heart can do that. When we hold selfishness in our heart, we use any understanding or perspective we gain for our own selfish ends. When we have a loving heart and we practice this true understanding, this true perspective, this true compassion and empathy, we are doing it to be of service to that person, not take advantage of them, right? We can only truly help people, as we've said multiple times throughout this absolute love chapter, is through practicing absolute love. Okay, you can take the right actions, but if you're not doing it for the right reasons, you're still usually trying to get something out of it, trying to feel better about yourself. You're trying to get a attaboy or a good job, a pat on the back, recognition, trying to further your own way in life, whatever that might look like. So, absolute love is the only way to truly provide a service to somebody, which is pretty amazing, actually, at the end of the day. At least we know that's where it has to come from, right? An absolute love is the only way we can see things truly as they are, not through this selfish, self-centered lens and as to the world in context of me, because that's always going to make me biased. That's always going to give me pause to take action, because how's it going to affect me, right? So to actually see the world in its truest state, in its most genuine and authentic state, is to come from a place of absolute love, because you want nothing from the world in that moment. You want nothing from the world for yourself. And when you want nothing from the world, you don't have to view it any certain type of way. You can just see it exactly as it is. And then it brings us into this really important question. And when I first read it, I didn't realize how important it was. But upon contemplation and really thinking about it, it's just really substantial to consider. Who welcomes this knowledge of a loving heart, right? Because we just talked about this. It leads to perspective. It leads to compassion and empathy. All these things seem great, right? But you've got to really ask yourself, like, why is this important and difficult to answer? Like, you have to be very, very honest with yourself about how this is going to go. And very, very honest with yourself about if you want the knowledge of a loving heart. Because most people would immediately say, yes, of course I do, right? Yes, of course I do. But if you give people a little bit of context, you might see them hesitate. Because if you do take the knowledge of a loving heart, it does a couple of things. Well, it does a lot of things, actually. But it will at first force you to see and look at everything that you've done selfishly and for the wrong reasons, right? Because until you come from a loving heart, until you are coming from a place of absolute love, it's always done selfishly. As much as you can fight me to the last breath, but it will always be a selfish motive unless it is from absolute love. And when you do that, you change over to this place of absolute love, you'll see all of the decisions you've made. You'll see all of the events you've set in motion. You'll see all of the things that you've done selfishly, self-centeredly, even the things that you thought you were doing from a place of good intention, even the things that you had done to try to genuinely help somebody. You're going to realize those are the things, or those things had selfish motives as well. That on your own strength, without an absolute love in your heart, you will be selfish. Do you really want to see that? Can you see that? Do you believe that that's something you could even take in? Some people can't. It's painful. It's painful to see the people you've hurt. It's painful to see the people you've manipulated. It's painful to see the people you've used. And the situations that you've handled poorly. Because you didn't know better. Because you weren't, didn't know how you were, where it was coming from, right? It's difficult to see yourself in your true colors. It is a humbling experience. Right? You're not just someone who's got bad luck. Right? It's the world isn't unfair to you. I used to think that way. And it turns out I was horrifically selfish and self-centered. And I was playing the victim, and I was acting in ways that were completely unacceptable. I was creating a environment and a situation for myself that was completely unbearable. But it was all of my own doing because I was just so selfish. I was trying to move pieces and pawns and players and all of these things. I was trying to direct the show, as they say sometimes, to what I wanted it to be. And I really hurt a lot of people along the way. And try to excuse it through me just trying to get through it and live life and tolerate the world. So it's a humbling thing to begin to look through a loving lens at the world and see what you could have done better. And it's not only painful to our ego, though. It's also painful to see and perceive the suffering of others and the suffering that is in the world in general, of other individuals, of larger communities, of countries, of populations, demographics, whatever, however you want to cut it up, right? There's people that are suffering in this world, people that are genuinely hurting, and people that are genuinely lost in their spiritual journeys. And I've seen people see that and then instantly turn away from that loving heart. I have seen people reject that perspective and begin to feel hopeless and sink into self-pity because the suffering and the pain of others that they observe and they really genuinely realize then seems overwhelming. And this is what comes along with this question of who welcomes the knowledge of a loving heart. This is what comes along with perspective. This is what comes along with compassion and empathy, at least initially. At some point, you get to work through it and realize that you can do something about it, and maybe even the smallest of ways, but you still have an opportunity to act. All right? And another reason people turn away from it, or people don't want to answer it or even acknowledge it or step into it, is because it comes with certain responsibilities. Because it comes with the responsibility to now take loving actions, to now take appropriate actions, to now not act selfishly and self-centeredly. It comes with a requirement to always do your best to be loving. And some people aren't ready for that. Took me a while to be ready for it. I say I'm ready for it. I say I do this. I can tell you I don't do it perfectly. I do it a lot better than I used to. But I do not do it perfectly. And this can be an overwhelming place sometimes. Because from what I know now, and I don't know much, I guess, in the grand scheme of things, but I do know that absolute love is the only way to actually move forward in a healthy way. You don't see that all the time anymore either. You don't see that in this world. But it goes on to that individual responsibility of what do we want to bring into this world, right? So, and then we go into this couple examples in the book about why this is important in today's society, really, and how absolute love and a loving heart needs to be implemented, or why it might need to be implemented in today's society. And it speaks about a lot of lack of compassion, a lack of true understanding, and it goes into first talks about the poor and those in poverty, and it talks about how people are treated as criminals just because they're poor. And I understand that some laws get broken when you have no money, theft and this and that, right? But but being poor isn't really a crime, and it talks about how the ability for people to help is how they use the word meted, so it's doled out by laws, and it's limited in such significant ways to actually be of service to people, to actually provide them what they need and what they want. And there's so much red tape to actually go help somebody in an official way, right? To be involved with any sort of organization that involves money comes with restrictions, comes with requirements and this and that. And one of the biggest things I think this has transformed into today is insurance too, right? Like, especially here in the States, I'm sure it's other nations struggle with it as well. But the insurance that you have, what's billable and what's not billable, and what we can do and get paid for, what are we wasting our time doing because we're not making money off of it, right? Like, how are people supposed to feel like they're genuinely cared about when the only thing that's measured is what's billable? The only thing that's measured is things to make sure they have their own money coming in, their own money flow coming in. And now I understand that's part of the business world today, like you need money to actually have a business and everything like that. So I'm not condemning capitalism by any means, which some might take this as, but that is a barrier. That specific thing that we can only help as to what we can make money off of, to actually being genuinely of service and to practice absolute love in all areas towards people, right? It's had such a deep and significant effect on so many. And people will actually reject the help that's being offered to them because of not being treated as a human. And I know this intimately because of my own experience, because of the experience of my brother, because of the experience of other people I know that are in the recovery world that have gone through homelessness and substance use and alcoholism and mental health issues and all of these things that have placed them in a position where they need to be the recipients of this type of help, and they reject it fully. Because even in its limited way it's offered, because it doesn't feel genuine in any way. It doesn't feel like they're there to actually help. it seems to them that help is a side effect of what's going on, but money's the primary thing. And now being on the other side of it, I do understand that I have more perspective, and that there's people that are genuinely interested in helping, right? There's people that actually do want to help that are within that, but sometimes they get drowned out because of the soullessness of the law and insurance. And that's a terribly unfortunate thing. It's painful to be viewed as just a bill and a number, or a mark on an attendance sheet, or a claim that this is effective, or that these amount of services were received or used or billed for. It's the love is gone out of a lot of the help out there. And all human beings are worthy of dignity and respect, regardless of who they are, what's going on, where they've come from, what they've done. I've learned that over these years. And I do mean everybody. And I've only learned that because I've chosen to function from a place of love and strive for this understanding that this section of this chapter is talking about. And don't just automatically associate bias and stigma to people, which we battle with so much today. And they referenced in this too, it's stigma's such a big term today. And it's funny to read it in a book that was from 1930s talking about the negative impact stigma can have on people, and but this quote that they said, whilst only a few humanitarians with real pain in their hearts try to alleviate their lot in some measure, but without being able to reach the root of this canker in our civilization, that they should know no want. So they're talking about how there's goes back to that. There's good people out there that are really trying to help, but they can only do so much, right? And they can't actually reach down to the roots of the problem because there's so much limitation as to what they can actually do, what they can actually say, what they can actually service they can actually provide, right? A lot of it's because of the laws, the insurance, but the stigma as well, right? Oh, this person can't do this. We can't have them there. Oh, this person would benefit from having a job. Well, they can't work because they have these limitations, And I see the logic for it. I see the reasoning and justification for these things too. But for those who are genuinely trying to change and improve their lives, it's such a barrier. I'm grateful that I've, from my own experience, been able to change and achieve as much as I have, to be honest with you. There's many that haven't been able to take these opportunities. And most of the social services programs out there really only treat symptoms, right? That's what that last part is. Unable to reach the root of this canker in our civilization that should know no want, right? There's enough here to ensure people don't have to live in certain conditions. Now, I'm not coming from a socialist or communist standpoint. Please don't confuse that. But because we don't provide them the correct support, and we're not coming from a place of love, we're not able to actually help them facilitate their own personal growth. We're not going to be able to help facilitate their own reintegration back into society, right? Because we're doing it for the wrong reasons most of the time. This next line really, this next quote I picked when I was going through, it really was huge in my opinion. Do we really care that hunger marchers who march with class hatred in their very souls against those they believe to be their oppressors, that sound familiar today, find at their journey's end nothing will give them back even their self-respect? Because they took actions with the wrong reasoning, right? Another action taken for the wrong reason. That's what that is. If you are marching out of hatred, out of disgust, out of victimization mentality, with the pure intention to hurt or to harm or to punish another class of people, another group, it will never be successful. You can't even regain your self-respect. Because you're not coming from a place of love. You're coming from a selfish and self-centered standpoint. And it will never be successful. And then the pot will just stew, and this will be, nothing can ever change, and people become so discontent and disgruntled and irritated and angry, and then they continue to grow and have outbursts, and things just continue to deteriorate, right? And then I love that this chapter even goes into this, that extends into the prison systems it talks about too. And the desire to punish overrides the loving heart. And we end up just facilitating this environment that actually creates more criminals and creates an environment for them to actually perfect their criminal craft, right? I'm somebody that went to jail. I was only there for a couple of months. It was long enough to know that this is true. It was long enough to understand that there's not much helping that goes on in these places initially. It's a sharing of thoughts and ideas of nothing good and productive and healthy. It's like the exact opposite of loving. It's the epitome of selfishness and self-centeredness, and to take and to hate. And that's where I was. That's what I wanted to do. That's what I knew how to do. So when they put this in there, it was almost a relief to see, like, hey, we're still working on this. And they were trying to fix this back in the day. This is something they brought up and say, we need to be responsible for actually helping these people grow in knowledge and character to help them reintegrate back into society so they can be successful people, rather than people that have just perfected the way they want to break the law, or found more ways to not get caught, or do this and do that, right? There's a responsibility that we have to take on to actually provide them the opportunity to do this. And then it talks about even youth offenders, right? We have, at least in the States, there's juvenile offenders where like under 18, and then there's record can get sealed and then expunged and this and that, right? But they'll always have a mark on it, right? They'll always have this distinction, right? That they had to go through this, that they've done that, right? Especially today, everything's online, everything's Googleable. I'm Googleable, right? Like it's something that is so disheartening to actually see. It's something that you can never get away from. Not that and the problem is you feel like you need to get away from it, right? Like I am grateful that despite my past actions and experiences, I've been given the grace to change and grow. And it's taken a lot of work to get to where I am. But there was a lot of people willing to help me, but it didn't come from Well, it came from some official programs, but a lot of it came from people that charged me nothing for it. People that showed me how to grow and behave and build my character and to be a healthy man in this world. Right. And this next, he mentions this go and sin no more is of very little use to anyone in their future if their future has been destroyed and he is branded as an ex-convict to his dying day. Right? If you can go and get better, but because of certain situations that you've done in your past, that will limit you for the rest of your life, which is kind of heartbreaking. I know it's not a perfect system. I know there's a lot of people that come out and they might reoffend, and the recidivism rate is huge, especially here in the States. And but for those who get out and do something different with their lives, they have no recourse, or it's very limited recourse to actually get this scarlet letter removed from them, to get this yoke placed upon them. Self-imposed, surely, but is there a time where we should free them of that? It's just a question, I guess. Are we really practicing forgiveness? Are we really being absolutely loving? Are we really affording people the opportunity to grow and change? These are important things. These are important questions we need to ask ourselves as individuals and in society, in our communities, right? But this is why I believe that 12-step programs are so effective, because there's no money involved. That's one. The help is given freely from other people, and it's a place of acceptance. It's a place of non-judgment. When I walked in there, regardless of what I had done, I was able to sit in a seat. I was able to not feel like the lowest piece of dirt in the world anymore. I was able to be given hope for change, hope that there could be a different life for me, and no one was charging me for it. No one wanted anything from me. They only hoped for my own personal growth and success. Now that's a beautiful thing. I never experienced that before, and I don't know if it was never offered or if I just couldn't understand it, to be honest with you. But because people were so willing to share with me and to let me grow, and I didn't feel obligated or a number or anything else, I just felt like another human being to them. I was able to feel that absolute love that they were practicing. I was able to receive that. I was able to know kindness and understanding and compassion and empathy from others. For the first time, I think, really. And that's why I believe it worked. And that is what we need to bring in to this world. That's what we need to bring into all of our interactions, to all of our jobs, all of our communities, all of our community programs, things like that, right? It's been an incredible experience. And I've seen both sides in many ways. And then it talks about this. It talks about so many things, like this war between classes and how people have begun to learn to stand up for themselves, they phrased it as like the working class has become educated, and they've begun to be able to articulate things, and then the upper class that used to exist based just purely on prestige and a family name and certain characteristics that power dynamic now shifted, right? And it talks about how this is starting to reorganize the social system, but we can't do it from a place of hatred. We can't do it from a place of victimization. We can't do it from a place of warring. We can't do it from a place of hatred and anger, and selfishness and self-centeredness. It has to be done from a place of love. And I do believe we've changed a lot of that. I do believe we've grown a lot in this aspect. And I do believe that there's probably some work we can do still. But I think we need to keep this in mind as to why we're doing this. And the only way to do it in a healthy way is from a place of absolute love. And then there was this ominous line right at the end of this paragraph that I'm going to read again, actually, from the book. It was kind of remember, this was written in 1930s. Okay, and I'll explain why that's important. We must remember that no one can prophesy with certain knowledge or real foresight the nature of the change in the structure of social life that may come about even in our time, but it is certain that events will go at a far quicker pace as the next few years pass, and that the end may bring a holocaust, the like of which has never been seen or imagined. Now, I don't know about you, but that was before World War II. So I have a dictionary from 1929 here, and I just wanted to look up Holocaust because now it's so quickly associated with World War II and the death camps and all of that, and the death of the Jews and the millions of Jews that were killed, that I wanted to just look it up before that occurred. And it says a sacrifice wholly consumed by fire. Right? I didn't know that was the actual definition there. And when I read that the first time, I was like, wow. What a word to use, and what a prediction to make in 1930, in early 1930s, when no more than 15 years later, an event so substantial will occur that they call it the Holocaust, and it involves the burning, and it's just this class war that occurred that they were convinced was real, right? That they were told needed to occur and to level the playing field, right? So like this social reform that went the complete wrong way, that was based on anger and hatred, right? That's what happened. It's just kind of amazing to me that they actually did this. Millions of people died. Millions of people died in World War II, right? It's an ominous line. So punishing people for being someone to blame in a system that is not successful, it causes just hate and resentment. And people don't actually grow. People just take, and it becomes this crippled society and this destruction of culture and people. And we need to watch out for that. We need to watch out for that. Because there's another way to do it, and it's absolute love. And I'm going to read this last part. If half these problems, so near to all of us, could awaken even a spurt of constructive action, we should try to get down to the real solution by proving to the world that Christ, with his absolute love for mankind, can and will save, for the sake of a few, the many who will not even know him, right? It's absolute love is the only way to do this stuff going forward, to address these issues societally, culturally, nationally, internationally, right? We're on the world stage. There is really only one meaningful solution that would work. And it has to come from the ground up, and it has to come from the people that are participating in all of these things, right? And not just on one side. It has to come on both. But it can start on one side. It can start with one person, right? Absolute love can work. But we have to show that it can work from our own actions. We have to show with every opportunity that we can bring absolute love into this world, absolute Christ love, absolute love, a loving heart into this world. And that is where we can function from. And that is where we can grow from. And that is what we can build from and build on a solid foundation that won't be torn down. That is the reality we need to function from. Not take here to give there, but it is to love one another. And it'll all work out in the end. Which seems so simple. I know. Idealistic, I know. But I do think it's possible. I do think it's possible. I know it's possible. Because that's the only reason I'm here. Is because other people practiced absolute love. And look where it brought me. And I'm thankful for that every day. So, there we go. That is the end of the 5th installation of Absolute Love. I think next week we're actually going to finish it up. And then we will start on something new. So I'm excited about that. So thank you, everybody, for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed it. And until next time, thanks.